The rain had been falling for 3 days straight, washing the city in a dull gray heaviness that matched Emily Carter's life far too perfectly. She stood outside the glass doors of Willow and Hart Industries, clutching her daughter's small hand, unsure whether she had the courage to walk inside. Her heart pounded with the tremble of a woman who had learned to endure too much, lost dreams, financial collapse, abandonment, and the aching burden of raising a child alone. But what pushed her forward that morning wasn't her courage. It was her daughter, Lily, a quiet 6-year-old with bright eyes that held a sadness far too mature for her age. Emily knew she had to do this. They needed help. And for the first time in years, a slim chance had arrived in the form of a job interview with the company's elusive CEO, Daniel Hart. She didn't know then how one small moment, a child's simple, unexpected thank you, would unravel a story bigger than all of them. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps these stories reach more hearts. Emily wasn't sure what scared her more, the possibility of rejection or the possibility of hope. After everything that had happened, after the divorce that shattered her stability, after losing her home, after working 2 jobs while trying to keep Lily's world intact, hope felt dangerous. As she stepped into the marble lobby, her breath caught. It was a world made of polish and wealth, a world that seemed to glow with privilege she no longer recognized. Emily straightened her faded blouse and guided Lily toward the receptionist desk, whispering reminders to be patient, to be quiet, to stay close. Lily, ever observant, stared around with wide eyes but said nothing. She rarely spoke to strangers these days. The divorce had changed her. The sudden absence of her father had shut something inside her, leaving her waking up crying at night, clutching Emily's shirt, whispering questions she didn't know how to answer. Losing her home only deepened the wounds. She stopped trusting the world. She stopped trusting people. She stopped believing things could be okay again. And though Emily tried her hardest, she could never quite break through that silent shell. Every day felt like pushing against a locked door. When Daniel Hart finally agreed to meet Emily in person, she assumed he had done so only because she had emailed him relentlessly for weeks. She never expected he would actually read her resume, let alone respond. CEOs didn't reply to single mothers working night shifts at diners, but Daniel had. And now here she was, walking toward the conference room where her fate would be decided. Daniel Hart was known across the industry as the kind of leader who rarely smiled, rarely spoke unnecessarily, and rarely offered second chances. He was a man shaped by discipline, routine, and a life that looked perfect on paper. But few knew that Daniel lived in a silence of his own, a silence created years ago when he lost his sister in a car accident. She had been only 7, too young, too innocent, too precious. The world had stolen her, and Daniel had never forgiven himself for not being there that day. The guilt lived inside him like a ghost, haunting, shaping, tightening his chest in moments when he least expected it. It made him quietly compassionate, though he hid it behind professionalism and distance. But it also made him notice things others never saw. When Emily and Lily entered the room, Daniel felt something shift. The sight of the little girl, timid and small in her pink dress, tugged at something buried in his memory. Her expression, soft but cautious, reminded him of his sister's face the morning she left for school on the day of the accident. Something in him softened. Emily apologized for needing to bring Lily, explaining that her babysitter had canceled last minute. Daniel simply nodded, gesturing for them to sit. He didn't mind. But he could see the embarrassment in Emily's eyes and the shame in the way she pulled her daughter close. Emily spoke about her experience, her skills, her past jobs, trying her best to hide the strain in her voice. Daniel listened carefully, noticing the roughness of her hands, the exhaustion behind her eyes, the strength it must have taken for her to walk into this room at all. Lily sat quietly watching Daniel, studying him with an intensity unusual for a child. Daniel glanced at her occasionally, offering soft smiles that she didn't return. As the interview progressed, something inside Daniel began stitching itself back together. Emily's honesty touched him, but it was the silent girl with the guarded eyes who triggered emotions he hadn't felt in years. When the meeting ended, Daniel stood, thanked Emily, and told her he would reach out with a decision soon. And then it happened. Lily, who had barely spoken a word since entering, lifted her small head, looked directly at Daniel with stunning clarity, and whispered, "Thank you." It was unexpected, soft, and intimate, too meaningful for such a small phrase. Emily froze in surprise. Lily didn't speak to strangers, not like this, not with sincerity. But Daniel understood immediately. Lily wasn't thanking him for the interview. She was thanking him because for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. She felt seen. Children didn't articulate trauma the way adults did, but they recognized gentle spaces intuitively. She felt Daniel's quiet kindness, the gentleness he wasn't aware he radiated. She felt something she had been desperate for, a sense of security. Daniel's breath caught, that word, the tone, the innocence. It echoed in his memory like a bell. His sister had said those exact words the morning she left. She had eaten breakfast, hugged him tightly, and whispered "thank you" before running out the door. He never understood why she thanked him that morning. Now it was gratitude for feeling safe. Daniel blinked hard, clearing the blur in his eyes. That small voice had reopened a doorway inside him he thought was shut forever. After Emily and Lily left, Daniel sat silently in the conference room, staring at the seat where Lily had been. The child's unexpected gratitude had touched a wound he didn't know still bled. But it also awakened something powerful, the desire to help, the desire to protect, the desire to give someone the second chance he had never given himself. Emily didn't know any of this when she returned home that evening. She simply hoped for a miracle. She cooked dinner, helped Lily change for bed, and sat beside her as the little girl fell asleep, clutching her stuffed bunny. Emily watched her daughter breathe softly and wished, just wished, that life would give her one break. The next morning, Emily's phone rang. Daniel offered her the job. But it wasn't just a job, it came with flexible hours, full benefits, childcare support, and a salary far more generous than she expected. Emily couldn't speak at first. Her voice cracked, her lungs trembled, and she covered her mouth in disbelief. Daniel calmly explained that Willow and Hart believed in lifting people who were willing to work hard. He didn't mention the real reason, the little girl with the tender whisper. As weeks passed, Emily flourished in the workplace. She worked diligently, often impressing colleagues with her drive and kindness. Lily too began to change. She laughed more. She played again. She talked to people. Daniel made sure the company daycare welcomed her with open arms. Sometimes he would pass by and catch a glimpse of her drawing or reading, and he would feel that same ache, that same warmth in his chest. He never told Emily how deeply that moment in the interview room had affected him, but everyone around him noticed he smiled more often, spoke more gently, and carried a lighter aura. He didn't understand it himself at first, but slowly he realized that Lily had given him something priceless, a reminder that innocence still existed, that goodness still mattered, that redemption wasn't impossible. Months later, the company hosted a small appreciation brunch for employees and their families. Emily brought Lily, who ran around giggling with the other children. Daniel watched her from across the room, the echo of her thank you still living in his memory like a soft lantern glowing in the dark corners of his heart. He approached Emily, telling her she'd become one of the company's most valued employees. Emily, overwhelmed, admitted that Daniel's kindness had changed their lives. Daniel looked at Lily, who had now blossomed into a bright, confident little girl, and he felt proud, not of himself, but of the world for allowing him to make something right. Sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest changes. Sometimes healing comes in whispers. Sometimes a child's simple thank you can break open a lifetime of silence. Life didn't magically become perfect for Emily. She still faced challenges, still struggled at times, still questioned her strength. But she no longer felt alone, and Lily no longer carried fear in her eyes. Daniel found peace he didn't know he was searching for. He found purpose in helping others, in seeing potential instead of problems, and in remembering that kindness, quiet, unnoticed kindness, could save someone's entire world. And in a way he never expected, that little girl saved him too. If this story touched your heart even a little, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe so more people can experience stories that remind us what truly matters. Before we end, special request, comment below. Kindness still exists.